Mr. President, you'll see for the next hour a whole group of Republicans coming to the floor to be able to talk about one issue, our need for border security and safer communities. This is something not just Republicans in the Senate are talking about. This is something the American people spoke loud and clear about during the last election when they elected President Trump, a Republican Senate, and a Republican House. There's not a single member that's a Republican in this body, in the House, or clearly President Trump, that didn't talk about border security and safer communities throughout the entire election. And every single poll showed that this was one of the priority issues that every single American was thinking about. A Gallup poll last year found that more than 3/4 of Americans support increasing the number of Border Patrol agents. 2/3 of Americans want the President and Homeland Security Secretary to temporarily halt all asylum requests when the border is overwhelmed. And third in this list, a majority of Americans support expanding border wall construction. People want a secure community. On the floor this week, we started last week and still debating this week, is what to do on what's called the Laken Riley Act. Now, some Americans are familiar with Laken Riley's story, some are not. Laken Riley was a college student in Georgia who was brutally murdered by a Venezuelan who came into the United States illegally, was detained at the border, but then released. Traveled around the country wherever he wanted to, under a parole system that was given to him in the border in 2022. He committed a crime, was arrested for that crime, and then was released. He committed another crime, shoplifting, was arrested for that crime, and then released. The third crime, as far as we know, there might have been many more, but the third crime, as far as we know, was his murder of Laken Riley. He should have never been in the United States. He should have never been paroled at the border. He should have been detained and then deported, but he wasn't. He was paroled into the United States. When he committed a crime in the United States, he should have been deported, but he was not. He was released. When he committed a second crime in the United States, he should have been deported, but he wasn't. He was released before he ever got to murder. The Laken Riley Act is pretty simple. It says if someone is here illegally and they commit a crime in the United States of stealing American stuff like he did, that he's deported. I don't think it's a radical concept to be able to say Americans don't want someone to come into the country illegally and take their stuff. Why this is even a challenge to be able to pass this, I have no idea. This passed in the House last session, but the Senate never took it up to even discuss it. If I go to any of the great 4 million Oklahomans from my state and I say, what do you think about someone illegally coming into the country and stealing people's stuff? Do you think that's okay that they should still be able to stay? I don't think I'd find anybody of the 4 million Oklahomans that would say, I'm okay with someone illegally coming in the country, stealing people's stuff, and saying, you can go ahead and stay. That's all that this bill does. It says if someone comes into this country illegally, starts stealing stuff, they are detained, they're held, they're not just allowed to be released and to be able to drift around the country to steal other things or to commit a murder later. If they come into our country illegally, they start stealing things, they are detained. And they'll go through the rest of the legal process. It doesn't mean they're automatically deported the very next day. They've still got a legal challenge there. They can have their legal challenge, but they're not going to just wander around the country. That's why we believe this Laken Riley Act is so important, because we never, ever, ever, ever want to have another American that is murdered by someone illegally present here, especially someone who had already committed multiple crimes before they ever got to that murder. So let's have the debate. I'm willing to be able to talk to any one of my Democratic or Republican colleagues that have a question about this. But at the base of this is, why would we let someone who was already illegally present in the country, who we already know has committed additional crimes, just continue to walk our streets just to commit more crimes, why would we not detain those individuals? On Monday, President Trump will be inaugurated. I am looking forward to working with him and seeing even what happens on day one to be able to secure the border. This is something the American people want. They want a border that is secure. They want communities that are secure, and they want just basic common sense things done. Like if someone breaks into our country and then steals stuff, they're actually detained rather than just released to go do it again. Let's at least do the basics that we can do while we continue to be able to work towards the big projects that still need to be done.